The arena lights blinded Charlotte as she stepped up to the microphone for what was supposed to be a routine pre-race press conference in Chicago's bustling convention center. Charlotte, is it true you're involved with your teammate Charlie in a way that goes against everything this sport stands for? The reporter's voice cut through the crowd like a knife. In that moment, her carefully hidden world threatened to shatter everything she'd worked for. She stood there, her athletic frame tense under the bright lights, her short brown hair damp with sweat from the warm-up earlier. The national championships were only 4 days away, and this was supposed to be her moment to shine, to secure her spot on the Olympic track team. At 22, Charlotte had dedicated her life to running, pushing her body to the limit on the track at the University of Illinois, where she was the star of the women's 400-meter relay team. Sponsors loved her clean image, the all-American girl from a small Ohio town who quoted scripture in post-race interviews. But now the room full of journalists, coaches, and federation officials buzzed with the kind of energy that signaled scandal. The question wasn't vague. It named Charlie directly, her teammate, her best friend, and the woman who had quietly become the center of her universe over the past year. They had met during a brutal winter training camp, bonding first over shared exhaustion, and then over deeper conversations that stretched late into the night. What began as innocent laughter turned into stolen glances, then into moments alone where their hands found each other without needing words. Charlotte had never felt anything like the warmth that flooded her chest when Charlie smiled at her across the track. Yet every time those feelings surfaced, the voice of her upbringing echoed louder. Her father was a deacon at First Baptist Church back home. Sunday mornings meant sermons on moral purity, Bible studies that left no room for doubt about what God expected. Charlotte had grown up believing homosexuality was a sin, something to be prayed away, and she had tried. She had knelt in her dorm room more nights than she could count, asking for strength, for clarity, for the feelings to disappear. They never did. The leaked photo must have started it all. Someone from the team had snapped it at a low-key retreat 2 months earlier. Charlotte and Charlie sitting close on a bench, shoulders touching, eyes locked in a way that friends did not look at each other. The image had sold fast to a tabloid site and now it was everywhere. Charlotte's mind raced through possible responses. Deny everything and protect her career, her family's pride, the sponsorships that paid her tuition. Or speak the truth and watch it all burn. The silence stretched too long. Cameras clicked. A Federation official in the back row shifted uncomfortably, his face already paling. I don't know what you're referring to, she finally managed, her voice barely steady. It was a half-lie and everyone in the room heard it. Murmurs swelled. The press conference continued, but Charlotte barely registered the follow-up questions about her split times or training regimen. She escaped the moment it ended, heart hammering as she pushed through the side door into the dimly lit hallway. Her phone buzzed instantly. Charlie's name lit the screen. "Meet me at the locker room," Charlotte texted back, fingers shaking. When she arrived, Charlie was already there, her long dark ponytail still damp from her own workout, brown eyes wide with worry. "They asked you on live TV?" Charlie whispered, pulling her into a quick, careful hug. "I saw the clip online. You didn't deny us." Charlotte leaned into the embrace for just a second, inhaling the familiar scent of Charlie's shampoo mixed with the faint chlorine from the indoor track. "I couldn't say yes either. Not there. Not with the sponsors watching." They sat on the wooden bench, knees touching, the weight of the moment pressing down. Charlie squeezed her hand. "We knew this day might come. I love you, Charlotte. Whatever you decide, I'm here." The words should have brought comfort, but they only deepened the ache. Because loving Charlie felt like the most honest thing in her life, yet it clashed with every lesson her father had taught her about right and wrong. Later that evening, back in her hotel room overlooking the city lights, Charlotte's phone rang again. This time it was her father. "Charlotte, Ann, what on earth is happening? The church prayer chain is blowing up my phone. They say there's a picture of you and that girl from your team. You know what the Bible says about this lifestyle. It's not of God. Come home tomorrow. We'll pray through it together." His voice carried the same steady authority it always had in the pulpit, but now it cracked with personal pain. Charlotte closed her eyes, tears slipping free. "Dad, it's not that simple." "It is that simple," he replied. "You're throwing away everything we raised you for. The future God has planned. Fix this before the championships. Deny it publicly if you have to. The call ended, leaving her staring at the ceiling. She had always tried to be the daughter who made her family proud, the athlete who honored her faith on the track. Now that foundation felt like quicksand. Was hiding her love for Charlie the righteous choice, or was it the coward's way out? The question looped in her mind as exhaustion finally pulled her under. The next morning brought no peace. Charlotte woke to a flood of messages, some supportive from teammates who had suspected, most condemning from distant relatives and old church friends. She skipped breakfast and headed to the practice track alone, hoping the rhythm of her strides would quiet the storm. But even there, the coach was waiting, clipboard in hand, face tight with concern. "We need to talk, kid." Coach Ramirez had been like a second father, pushing her through injuries and celebrating every personal record. Now he looked exhausted. "The Federation called me at 6 a.m. Sponsors are nervous. One major brand is threatening to pull funding if this turns into a full scandal. They want a clean narrative for the championships." Charlotte stretched her hamstrings, avoiding his eyes. What do they want me to do? Deny the relationship? Say it was taken out of context, that Charlie is just a close friend? Focus on the race. The team needs this medal. The suggestion hung between them like a challenge. It sounded practical, even merciful to her family. But it tasted like betrayal. Charlie arrived minutes later for joint drills, her presence a quiet anchor. During water breaks they stole a few private words behind the bleachers. "My dad wants me home," Charlotte confessed. "He thinks prayer will fix me." Charlie's expression softened. "And what do you think?" "I think I've been praying for years and nothing changed except how much I love you." They didn't kiss, not here where anyone could see. But the way their fingers brushed said everything. Still, doubt gnawed at Charlotte. That afternoon she slipped into a small chapel near the hotel, the kind of quiet space she had visited since childhood. Kneeling in the pew, she whispered the familiar verses about love and sin, asking God for a sign. None came. Only the memory of Charlie's laugh and the image of her father's disappointed face. By evening the Federation had scheduled a follow-up live television interview to clear the air. Charlotte sat in the green room, makeup hiding the dark circles under her eyes, while producers buzzed around. Charlie waited outside, texting encouragement. When the cameras rolled, the host wasted no time. "Charlotte, the nation saw the press conference clip. Are you in a romantic relationship with your teammate Charlie?" The room felt airless. Charlotte's heart slammed against her ribs. She thought of her father's voice, the sponsor's threats, the Bible verses drilled into her since she could walk. Then she thought of Charlie's steady gaze, the way their love had made her feel whole for the first time. "Yes," she said quietly, the word dropping like a stone into still water. "Charlie and I are together. I love her." The host blinked. In the control room, organizers turned visibly pale, one executive burying his face in his hands. The interview continued, but the damage was done. Social media exploded. Her phone vibrated non-stop. When it ended, Charlie rushed in, eyes shining with pride and fear. "You did it. You chose us." But Charlotte already felt the cracks spreading. That night her father called again, voice colder than before. "You've made your choice. Don't expect us at the championships." The line went dead, leaving an emptiness that no medal could fill. Charlotte lay awake, wondering if speaking truth had been bravery or selfishness. The decision that felt right in the moment now carried the weight of lost family support and endangered dreams. Training the following day felt heavier than ever. Charlotte pushed through intervals, legs burning, but her mind kept replaying the interview. Teammates offered awkward support or avoided her eyes entirely. The Federation issued a carefully worded statement about focusing on athletic performance, but everyone knew the sponsors were pulling back. Coach Ramirez pulled her aside again. "I respect your honesty, but the board is meeting tomorrow. They might bench you for the relay if the controversy grows." The word stung. Charlie joined her for cool-down stretches, their conversation low and urgent. "We can still win this," Charlie said. "Together." Charlotte wanted to believe it, but the internal war raged louder. She had grown up believing that true happiness came from obedience to God and family. Now that obedience demanded she deny the one person who made her feel seen. That evening they walked a quiet path along Lake Michigan, away from cameras. For the first time in days they held hands openly, the simple touch grounding Charlotte amid the chaos. "I don't regret saying it," she told Charlie. "But I hate what it's costing everyone." Charlie nodded, thumb tracing circles on her palm. Love isn't supposed to be easy when the world disagrees. But it's still real. Back at the hotel, Charlotte tried calling her mother, hoping for a softer landing. The conversation ended in tears on both ends. "We love you," her mother said. "But your father says we can't support this. It goes against everything we taught you." The rejection carved deeper than any physical injury. Charlotte spent the night rereading old journal entries from her first months with Charlie, pages filled with joy mixed with guilt. The conflict had layers. Not just faith versus love, but the fear that choosing one meant destroying the other. No one in her life was purely villain or hero. Her father believed he was protecting her soul. The organizers thought they were safeguarding the sport's image. Even Charlie understood the cost but refused to let Charlotte hide. The realization left her exhausted yet strangely awake. The next morning brought more bad news. A major sponsor officially withdrew, citing values misalignment. Charlotte stared at the email, the words blurring. She had always run to prove she was worthy, to honor the values drilled into her. Now those same values were stripping away everything she had built. Still, in the quiet moments between sets, she felt a small, stubborn spark of peace. For the first time, she wasn't performing for approval. She was simply being. 2 days before the championships, the tension peaked. The Federation held an emergency meeting Charlotte was required to attend. Seated across from suited executives and her coach, she listened as they outlined the risks. "Your interview has gone viral. Conservative media is calling it a distraction. If you want to compete, we need a follow-up statement emphasizing that your personal life won't affect the team." Charlotte met their eyes steadily. "I can't lie anymore." The room grew colder. One official sighed heavily. "Then we may have to reconsider your spot in the relay." Outside, Charlie waited with coffee and quiet solidarity. They spent the afternoon in a nearby park, the same one where they had shared their first real conversation about feelings. Sitting on a bench, Charlotte rested her head on Charlie's shoulder. "I keep thinking about what my dad said, that I'm throwing away God's plan." Charlie listened without interrupting, then replied softly, "Maybe God's plan was never about fitting into their box. Maybe it's about learning to love honestly." The words settled into Charlotte's chest like a seed. That night she prayed again. Not for the feelings to vanish but for strength to carry their weight. Sleep came in fragments, dreams mixing the starting gun with her father's disappointed face. The following day brought a surprise visit from her older brother, sent by the family. He met her at the track, voice heavy. "Dad asked me to come. He still loves you, but he can't watch you throw your life away. Come home after this. We'll work through it." The offer felt like a lifeline and a cage at once. Charlotte hugged him tightly, tears falling. "I can't pretend anymore. Tell him I still love him, but I have to live my truth." The conversation left both of them drained. Charlie held her afterward. No words needed. The championships loomed like a cliff edge. Charlotte trained harder than ever, channeling the pain into every stride. But the internal questions remained. Was protecting her family's peace worth losing herself? Was her love for Charlie selfish if it hurt so many others? The answers refused to arrive neatly. Championship day arrived under gray Chicago skies. The stadium hummed with energy, flags waving, crowds cheering. Charlotte stood in the call room, bib pinned, muscles loose from warm-up. Charlie was competing in a different event but had slipped her a note. "Run for you. I love you no matter what." The relay final approached. As the gun fired, Charlotte exploded off the blocks, legs pumping, crowd roaring. But halfway through her leg, the weight of the week crashed in. Her father's voice echoed, the sponsor emails, the federation warnings. She handed off cleanly but crossed the line knowing her split was off. The team finished fourth, missing the podium by fractions of a second. In the mixed zone afterward, reporters swarmed. Charlotte answered honestly. The loss was hers, the distraction real. No excuses. Back in the athletes' lounge, she found Charlie waiting, arms open. They held each other quietly while the noise of celebration swirled around them. Later that evening, alone with Charlie in a small diner far from the stadium, Charlotte finally let the tears flow freely. "I thought if I was true to myself everything would work out. But I hurt my family, cost the team, lost sponsors." Charlie wiped her cheeks gently. "You didn't hurt them on purpose. You stopped lying. That's not nothing." The conversation stretched late, revisiting every debate, every prayer, every fear. Charlotte saw now that no path had been perfect. Denying the relationship would have preserved appearances but killed her spirit. Embracing it had freed her but wounded the people she loved. The awakening wasn't triumphant. It was quiet acceptance of the cost and the responsibility for choosing it. She called her father one last time. The conversation was short, painful but honest. "I still believe in God," she said. "I just don't believe He wants me to hate who I am." He didn't reply immediately, but the silence carried less anger than before. Perhaps healing would come later. Perhaps not. Charlotte hung up knowing some losses were permanent. Weeks after the championships, life settled into a new rhythm. Charlotte returned to campus training. The Olympic dream dimmer but not dead. Sponsors had pulled away, but a few smaller brands reached out, drawn to her authenticity. Her relationship with Charlie deepened in the open. No more hiding, no more guilt-fueled nights. They cooked meals together, ran easy miles side by side, talked about a future that included both love and faith on their own terms. Yet the ache for her family lingered. Her mother sent occasional texts, careful and loving. Her father remained silent. Charlotte understood the silence wasn't hatred, but the same internal conflict she had carried for years. Tradition and personal truth refused to reconcile neatly. No one had been completely right or completely wrong. Her father had protected what he knew. The organizers had guarded their image. Charlie had fought for honesty. Charlotte had simply chosen, and the choosing carried consequences she now owned without resentment. Sitting with Charlie on the same park bench where their story had quietly begun, Charlotte watched the sunset paint the sky in soft oranges. The loss of the medal, the sponsors, the full family embrace still stung, but beneath it lay a fragile peace. She had stopped running from herself. The journey hadn't ended in victory. It had ended in responsibility and the quiet courage to live with both the joy and the pain. As the last light faded, Charlotte turned to Charlie and smiled, the kind of smile that carried no more secrets. In the end, as Charlotte sat with Charlie watching the sunset, she wondered if the price of truth was too high. But the real question remains. Was Charlotte right to choose her authentic self over tradition and family expectations? Or should she have conformed to protect the people and dreams she once held sacred?